So it's the middle of January and we get this cold snap. The temperatures drop down into the teens and then single digits. It's wind blowing and we get snow and ice, which we almost never see here on the beach. And the schools are closed and they're salting the roads and there's snow plows running up and down the bypass, all of it.
We think he's a ruby-throated hummingbird. I found that out myself.
But Daddy helped.
How did he help?
Well, he turned on the computer.
That's not helping. Anybody can do that. In the winter, hummingbirds normally migrate, but Frosty forgot to put his alarm on.
Maybe he's just dumb.
He's not dumb, Eric.
How did you know? Did you give him an IQ test?
Anyway, Miss Keller with the animal control rescued him and brought him into the office.
Everyone at the office is pretty excited. It's not every day you get to see a hummingbird up close in the middle of winter, no less. So our shelter doesn't have any way of looking after him. I mean, it's set up for dogs and cats, and that's about it. So I tell Kelly I'll take a stab at it and try to get him back on his feet. Of course, we've got to come up with a name for him.
How did he get his name?
One of Daddy's friends said we should name him Frosty because he was found out in the cold, so that makes him Frosty the Snowbird.
Well, he screams, so I should name him.
Why?
Because he's my favorite cover.
All right, what would you name him?
I'll name him Hulkbird because he's green.
But he's a hummingbird, for crying out loud.
So,
Hummingbirds are small.
So,
Hulk is big and strong.
Yes, but he starts out small.
I bring the little guy home and dig up the hummingbird food that I bought last summer just to get something in him. Of course, come to find out later, oops, that red dye that they put in the stuff really isn't the greatest for them. First lesson learned. So if you see videos of him with the red hummingbird food, that was before I knew. All they need is some plain old sugar water. And just plain old white sugar. No brown sugar, no nothing else, and especially not honey. Everything I read, honey can kill them. I don't know what that is, but don't put honey in their water. Anyway, you boil it first, mix it, well, you see about a 1-to-4 ratio of water to sugar on most of the sites. I read one interesting article where it explained how sugar is granular and there's air pockets and there's some other stuff going on. Anyway, you don't really get the 1-to-4 ratio using a measuring cup. So, erring on the side of caution, basically Frosty's running on some high-test 93 octane sugar water instead of regular. Oh, and then there's the bugs. Didn't know hummingbirds ate bugs, but apparently they need protein, and of course, bugs are kind of scarce in the winter, so
I had to buy some worms and give it, and squish their guts out and give it to the hummingbird.
So if you're looking at the videos and you see some stuff floating around in the sugar water, that's just protein. My son Eric was home with my wife when I brought Frosty back, and he was pretty excited.
I got to see Frosty first. Can I see it?
That is one cute. Is that a hummingbird?
That's a hummingbird.
Well, it was a surprise for Sarah.
But I knew my daughter Sarah was going to be off the hook. I mean, besides coming home to find a unicorn in your house, what's going to be more exciting to a 7-year-old girl than one of those little flying jewels? So I had it all set up to surprise her when she came home.
When I came home from a play date, Mom said that Dad caught another animal. I was scared to death. I couldn't even go in the room. When I went in there, oh my gosh, I was really surprised. I thought it was another snake. But Mom tricked me. It was a hummingbird.
That was a nice moment. We kept Frosty in a bird cage for the most part and started to feel bad about him being cooped up, so decided to let him fly around the bathroom a little bit and stretch his wings. Figured even though hummingbirds poop rainbows, it's still easier to clean up a rainbow in the bathroom than, say, the carpet in your living room.
One of the cool things we have learned is how to clean his cage.
You just pick up the cage, he stays right in it, he doesn't know how to fly out.
I told you that he was dumb.
Want to show them how we clean out the cage?
Yes! Yeah! Daddy says hummingbirds can poop rainbows.
Eric, you know Daddy's crazy. That's not true.
I know that's not true, Sissy. They really poop gumdrops.
Come to find out, he was remarkably trusting, and after a bit, if you held up your finger, he'd fly right down on it.
I'm really surprised how colorful hummingbirds are. And it's really amazing what they can do when they fly. It's so cool to watch new animals that you've never seen do interesting things.
I don't pretend that Frosty actually thought of us as friends like, I don't know, a dog might. But maybe he sensed that we were there to help him, and this was his way of thanking us.
He's shaking it.
See his little tongue going to town?
Yes.
Pretty cool. Ah, that was good. Frosty taught us a lot about hummingbirds during his stay with us. First is you can't keep them as pets, they're a protected species, much to the serious disappointment of at least one 3 and one 7-year-old child. Most of the time, the way people run across a hummingbird is when one of these little guys flies smack dab into a window or a wall or some other solid object that knocks them silly, basically. People will find them on the ground. You can see a bunch of videos on YouTube where people have found little hummingbirds and they've been knocked out by whatever they've collided with. In those cases, the best thing to do is just get them off the ground in someplace safe so a cat or some other critter can't get a hold of them, and the little CPUs in their brain will reboot after a little bit, and then they'll be on their way. They're so fragile that they struggle to survive any injury, let alone a serious injury. They're really small, of course, and they can get hung up in a spider web. That finishes a bunch of them every year, and there's cases where praying mantises actually have snatched them out of the air and eaten them. If you do come upon a wounded hummingbird, you want to get them to a rehab center as quickly as possible. In the meantime, keep him warm and dry, and if you do feed him, use a clean dropper, preferably a new dropper, and don't try to force him to eat because you can accidentally drown him if you force the liquid down his throat. Hummingbirds have this crazy metabolism. I mean, they are burning through some calories, and in the wild they have to eat every hour, sometimes more, except at night when they're resting.
I just don't want to let go of the hummingbird.
We love Frosty, but he's a wild bird and we have to let him go when he feels better.
Saying goodbye to Frosty was tough, especially for the kids. They were wrapped around that little bird, and all the discussions about wild animals living free pale in comparison when your daughter counters with, "But we love him." Frosty topped off for his flight to freedom and flew straight up into the tallest pine tree in our yard. We could see him darting around up there for several minutes before he buzzed away for parts unknown.
I'm going to dream about him.
It's okay, Sarah. Don't be sad. You should be happy he's free. He doesn't have to sit in that boring cage.
Don't worry, Sarah. He's Frosty. He'll be back one day.
We hope Frosty will still visit us from time to time. He's always welcome, of course, and we'll keep the feeder full for him. There's tons of information about hummingbirds online if you want to learn more about them, including how to set up a feeder to attract them to your yard. I hope that by sharing our close encounter with Frosty, it will encourage other people to learn more about hummingbirds, and at the end of the day, maybe help a bird or two if you come across one in a jam.